Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. This week's guest is the Grammy-nominated Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted, Songwriter Hall of Fame inducted, singer, songwriter, keyboardist of the great group, the Young Rascals, Felix Cavaliere. When we come back, Felix Cavaliere. All right, we're back with Felix Cavaliere. Felix, thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Pleasure.
I grew up listening to your music, as millions of us did, and although we're close to the same age, you were huge. I mean, and the music is still huge, and it's just timeless. Did you think at the time when you were writing these songs that they would, what is it, 50 years maybe?
True.
20 weeks?
Yeah, no one really thinks like that. But I mean, the benefit that we had was to be on Atlantic Records because they thought that way. See, that place there was one of the magical events of the musical careers of many, many human beings, including Miles Davis, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Rascals. Atlantic was a special place, and they made special music every day.
So, Ahmet Ertegun.
And Jerry Wexler, and there was a few. His brother Neshwe was part of it. They were part of a jazz part of it. But you know their story. You know their story. They must know their story. These guys came over here. They were children of Turkish ambassadors, and had this tremendous affinity for black R&B music.
Right.
So they took their Secret Service to New Orleans and Chicago and Memphis and probably Nashville, and they made this humongous, how should I put it? Label is not even the word. Monument to American music.
Yeah, and so how did you become part of the Atlantic family?
Somebody up there liked us.
Was the band was playing around? Somebody heard you?
No, we had this one particular show. We were asked to go. See, in Long Island, there's this place called the Hamptons, which is kind of like where everybody goes, and that's where everybody went before we were even a band. But I knew this, you see, so we were approached by this fella who had a discotheque in New York. He wanted us to be a house band in this new place in the Hamptons called The Barge. And I told my guys, I said, man, this is it. Let me tell you, everybody who's anybody in show business, banking, records, they go there for the summer. So we're gonna make it here. And then that's exactly what happened. Because what happened is the word got out because somebody did see us, and they told Sid Bernstein, who became our manager, I got these guys I want you to go see. Well, immediately, what he did is, first of all, double our salary, which was pretty cool. And second of all, the word went out to the record companies. So they all came in.
So Sid was already famous for the Beatles, right?
He was already famous for the Beatles.
Yeah.
And as far as the direct contact to Atlantic, well, I had this idea. See, I said, you know what? I want to produce ourselves. I don't want anybody telling us what to do. Kind of like trait that I have,
Yeah. Well, if you know what you're doing,
Well, I was inspired by the Motown example, and I read on one of the records, Money. You remember Money? Mm-hmm. Produced by Berry Gordy. Produced, huh? I like that word. And then, of course, I was a huge Phil Spector fan, which was tough because he was one of the guys that came in to sign us. But of course, I couldn't produce ourselves with Phil Spector. I would have been a Phil Spector band. Atlantic was the only one, man, that said you could do it. Everybody else said, yeah, we're fine, but we're going to give you a staff, A&R, they called them in those days. I said no. And my band was kicking me under the table, man. What do you mean you're turning down a deal? So I was very fortunate to get Atlantic. Very fortunate.
So they were that way with Ray, right? They let Ray produce his own album. Was that when he left?
That's during the time when he left, exactly.
Yeah.
See, because he was very smart.
So you dealt with Ahmet Ertegun, or who did you deal with at Atlantic?
Well, I dealt with Ahmet, and of course Jerry Wexler. Mostly Jerry Wexler, because Ahmet was kind of like the chairman of the board, you know what I mean? And so he was running around the world with the Rolling Stones and guys like that, you know what I'm saying? Because he was a pretty wild character. But with the grace of God, we got two people put into that room with us that were just geniuses. One was Tom Dowd, and the other was Arif Mardin. So I knew of Tom Dowd because his name used to be on some of the records that I bought. You know, I used to see, engineered by. But I didn't know Arif Mardin. Arif Mardin was George Martin to a lot of American bands,
Yes.
including us. He was just brilliant. And he and I really, really hit it off. We really like musically enjoyed one another's company, as well as personally. He was a great man. You know, I miss him terribly. So, from the first day, there was a pretty high level of making music in those days. You had these guys coming over from England. They were doing some pretty good stuff.
Right.
So if you wanted to survive, you better make some good stuff.
So what got you writing songs?
We were inspired by people like the Beatles, for example, writing their own songs. Lovin' Spoonful, Bob Dylan. All of a sudden, this came in. So I had always been, on the creative end of things, trying to write songs and stuff like that. But I said, why can't we do it, And of course, you have to prove yourself at that. You can't just go into a rep company and say, I'm going to write my own songs, because especially then, so we got very fortunate that we were able to succeed writing songs. A lot of people, that's their downfall. They try to write their own songs, they can't.
You're a classically trained musician.
Right.
How did that happen?
I heard people like Ray Charles play a keyboard, Fats Domino play a keyboard, Jerry Lee Lewis play a keyboard. I said, man, they play my instrument. I could play that stuff. Let me try it.
But you had formal lessons, though, right?
I had training in classical music.
Yeah.
But I had never heard anything like this. Never. Our churches didn't sing like that, man. I have no idea. You know what I mean?
But learning the proper music allowed you to do whatever you wanted to do, didn't it?
Yes. That's the advantage that my family gave me by having great training. I did very serious training my mom, rest her soul, she wanted me to be a classical pianist.
Yeah.
And she passed away when I was about 13, 14, so that pressure was kind of taken off and I could kind of drift a little bit, because I wasn't even allowed to, listen to anything really that was not, at that level of music,
What drew you to the Hammond B3?
A friend of mine said, hey, man, there's this club up in New Rochelle. You want to go? Anyway, we go up there and I see this organ trio, the Mighty Cravers. Organ, drums, sax. I said, what is that? Now, we never heard anything like that. The guy's playing pedals, he's playing rhythm, he's playing lead, and he's singing. I said, man, you know what? I got to do that.
How did you?
Well, I looked into it. I found out, Macy's sell Hammond organs, okay? I said, get on the train, went to New York City, which was about for a young kid, it was a pretty big ride. And I walked in. And there was this gentleman there, I remember his name was Mr. Silverstein. And he was kind enough to let a guy who didn't have $1 go into a room where the products were $3,000. He said, go ahead. It's in there. I got that thing going, then I found out it was $3,000. So I thanked the man very much. I told him, I may be back, but not for a while, because we didn't have $3,000. I didn't have $3,000. But I did get, there was a thing called an L or an M, which was a smaller version of the same kind of sound system. Mm-hmm. But I just got.
Did it have a Leslie with it?
Well, I originally did not. See, Hammond, John Hammond, not John Hammond, I forgot his first name, but he was like one of these Thomas Edison type dudes, you know what I'm saying? He just invented stuff. This is one of the things he invented. But he had no idea what it was. Now, he had this thing playing originally through almost like a Fender amp. It sounded like crap. It was not good at all. You know, it was straight. Well, this gentleman named Leslie, I guess that was his family name, came up with this box. You know, spins. Top spins, bottom spins. The theory is it's going to, go through the whole room like that. Primarily, I guess a living room is what they were thinking. I don't know. Hammond said, no, you're not putting it in our room. We'll pull the franchise. Ended up them buying Leslie because it really made a huge difference. So the two of those together is a marriage made in heaven, see? And so now that company is just one now,
I never knew that.
Oh, yeah. He didn't want anything to do with Leslie. Isn't that interesting?
It's totally wild.
Yeah, it's wild.
Because that is what makes a Hammond organ.
Oh, yeah. But he didn't want nothing to do with it. He said, no, man, and if you ever heard of Hammond through a Fender amp,
No, if you ever hear a guitar through a Leslie, it's awesome.
Well, Eric Clapton was one of the first guys I ever heard do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing to send your sound around the room like that. That's really a good idea.
Oh yeah. I mean, and you've got the option of the speed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's incredible. I had no idea that they weren't always like one and the same.
No, they were banned.
Okay, so you walk into Atlantic, or they call you in. What happened? How did you get the deal?
They gave us the deal that we wanted, that I wanted. That our lawyer got us a great deal. We had free studio time.
What studio did you use?
Their studio.
Atlantic Studios.
Atlantic Studio. I think it was 59th or 60th in Manhattan, and this is where Ray Charles. I said, this is where Miles Davis, John Coltrane. I said, wait a minute. You mean I'm in that room? He said, you're in that room, dude. And I said, woo! So that's like, that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Wow, we got to make some good music here.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was an experience I'll never forget.
So how did you choose what songs you were going to do?
Well, in the beginning, like I say, they helped us out with that because we're just young kids, and we really didn't have a lot of studio experience. So, which is, as you know, it's a whole different thing. They can't see you, but they can hear you,
Right.
So they helped us with that. They selected a lot from our albums, and they also solicited outside writers for I Ain't Gonna Eat Out My Heart Anymore, which was our first real single. And, because that's what you did in those days. You got outside writers, to put in songs. And then we had a pretty good repertoire. I mean, we had Since I Fell For You, and we had more, We had an interesting club-oriented rock and roll band. So those songs were from our, stage show.
Yeah. And so the band members, how did you get the band together?
I was a college student in pre-med at the time, and I had a group I started, and I went to the Catskill Mountains for a summer, and I really didn't want to go back. I wanted to do it. One of the groups that came into the summer hotel was Joey D and the Starlighters. These guys come in, and that's where, my story really gets crazy, because my life's never been the same since I met those guys. And they saw me, And about a month later, I was supposed to go back to school, and I was kind of starving to death because the summer was over. And my dad gave me permission to, never forget his words, take a year off, see if you can make it,
Yeah.
Which is pretty short, but anyway, I took it. And I got this call from him. They were in Europe, and their organist had quit. He had recently gotten married, and they needed an organ player quick. So I scooted off to Germany. Next thing I know, there's this band opening up for Joey D called The Beatles. Now, nobody knew him yet because they knew him over there, but they didn't know him. And that I see and hear what was to become musical history for the rest of time. What is this? Everybody's screaming and hollering. The kids are going crazy. And I see these guys with long hair. Long hair. And I remember my musical impressions of them, because I'm like, what's going on here, I mean, when they played American music, they were all right. You know what I mean? They wouldn't scare anybody with that. But when they played their stuff, it was unique, to say the least. I mean, it was something like, what? Pretty cool, man. You know, dun 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 dun. It's kind of different, you know what I mean? They're not on the beats like we are over here. You know what I'm saying? And I thought basically they were mostly a singing group. You know, I was not impressed with their playing. You know, I mean, I know they had some good players later, but they were all right. You know, we got, you know, the best players in the world right in this country. You know,
Oh, yeah,
we got the best players in the world. And I noticed that they were doing their own songs. So they tuned the girls screaming, and these guys said, maybe I want to do this for a career. You know, it looked like fun. So during that period of time, you know, I met these guys when we came back to the States. Joey started this band in New York called the Starlighters. He had a club. Mm-hmm. And in the band was Gene Cornish, and actually it was Eddie Brigatti. David Brigatti, his brother, had been part of the original Starlighters. Well, I had to pass a certain test with the United States Army, and I didn't pass it. So I was a free agent. Prior to that, I really didn't want to do anything because I knew I was going to get, you know, called out. And then I met a great drummer. I saw this guy, Dino Donnelly, play one song. I saw him play in this club called the Metropole, which had it had a glass window on it, so you could see the band playing from the street.
Yeah.
And I saw him play one song, "I Who Have Nothing," and he did I Who Have Nothing. Boom. In time. I said, oh my God, look at this. Are you kidding me, man? This cat was unbelievable. So I asked him and the other guys, you want to start a band? Let's do our own thing.
So when you wrote songs, did you write them as a group then? Or
No.
And what songs, I mean, what are your biggest songs that you wrote for the band?
Well, I wrote Beautiful Morning, How Can I Be Sure, Groovin', you know, Girl Like You, you know, I've Been Lonely Too Long, all of the hits, you know, and I really wanted to do a Lennon McCartney, you know, and I found out that my singing partner there, Eddie Brigatti, wrote nice lyrics. Matter of fact, he wrote lyrics that were more flowery than mine. Mine was a little too serious sometimes, you know, and so I said, come on, let's do it, you know, and we did. You know, and it was great in the beginning. You know, it really worked out well.
People everywhere.
And People Got to Be Free. I forgot
People
that
Gotta
one.
Get Free. Yeah.
Yeah.
You wrote that.
Yes.
So the reason I'm asking that, you said that in the beginning they only want you to do cover songs.
Well, you see, here's the story. All of a sudden, we put out one record. It's called "I Ain't Gonna Eat At My Heart Anymore."
Yeah.
Okay. At a top 20 maybe. And then all of a sudden we put out this record, we had #1, Good Lovin'. Now the tables turn a little bit. Now you ain't telling us too much. Matter of fact, I may tell you a few things. We just had #1 record. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It switches. Fast too, one record. So we went in there and all 5 feet 6 of us or whatever, and we said, we're writing our own songs. We were in control, remember now, seriously, when I say produce, we were in control. And we had to kind of fight with them a little bit about, you know, the album cover prices and costs, but we were in charge. That was the deal. And it was a great deal. And I as I say, I still don't believe we got it, but we got it.
You got paid fairly.
Who knows? I have no idea.
I mean, you didn't get some ridiculously low.
No, we were
record
luckier
deal.
than people like Tommy James, and I mean, because they didn't get paid at all.
Yeah.
You know? No, we did okay. I mean, like I say, our mistakes came from not really renegotiating the contract when the time came, and maybe wanting to own your masters. But as far as the pay, you know, we were making great money. I wasn't in any way complaining. Did we get it all? No, of course not. And we were supposed to.
But you were gigging all the time, making
Yeah, you know,
concerts.
I mean, like, I thought I had passed away and gone to heaven. I mean, I'm writing songs, I'm going to the studio, we're getting out of charge, we're going on the road. I mean, come on, mean, what more could I ask for?
Yeah.
And your ideas are being put into not only just tape, but Arif would call the Lincoln Philharmonic to come over and play on them. I mean, he would call. I mean, it was just like magic. You know, it was amazing. I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
And you guys, and I say this because we're in a town full of musicians.
Amen.
You played on all your own records. Your band
Yes,
played
we
on
did.
your records.
That was part of our thing. The only exception to that is as the first year and a half passed by, I was playing bass on the organ. You know what I mean? We didn't have a bass player.
Yeah.
And
Pedals, right? Am I right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was hard because of the fact that as the sound started to progress and get better, it was noticeable that it wasn't like a Fender.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like a... So Arif came in one day and he said, you know, there's a band here. They've got excellent musicians and they'd like to play with you guys. Now, I know what he was doing. Basically, he was saying, it'd be nice if you got a bass player. In walks Chuck Rainey. Okay? See, somebody's watching us. When you send a guy like that in a room, are you kidding me? So he became a real integral part of the Rascals. And I'll never forget it because he's such a doll. I love him.
Well, you know, Ray Manzarek would hire Larry Knechtel to go back with his bass guitar because he was a keyboard player as well.
Yes.
And actually put a stringed bass guitar on the Doors records.
Oh, yeah. No, we had Chuck, man. Everything else was us. You know, unless, of course, we had strings and horns and et cetera, you know. But we sang it and we played it.
Hey, I want to take a break here, but when we come back, I think everybody would love to hear the Ed Sullivan stories.
Oh, boy. Okay.
All right, when we come back, Ed Sullivan stories ought to be fun.
The Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum has been celebrating the men and women who make the music of our lives since 2006. The Musicians Hall of Fame is the one and only museum in the world that honors the talented musicians who played on the greatest recordings of all time.
It's a music city, huh? It's, I mean, where else are you going to get the cats, all the cats that are in this room?
The Grammy Museum Gallery at the Musicians Hall of Fame is an interactive facility that allows guests to explore the process of making a recording. Take drum lessons with Ringo Starr. Sing on stage with Ray Charles. Write a song with Desmond Child. Rap with Nelly. Or be Garth Brooks in our recording studio experience. Located in the heart of downtown Nashville, in the first floor of the historic Nashville Municipal Auditorium. Come see what you've heard at the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum.
We're back with Felix Cavaliere. Felix, when we cut out, we were going to talk about the Ed Sullivan shows. That's so Americana. It was, you know, what, 50, 75 million people would watch that show.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get 7,500 people watching the show anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
when you guys played on the Ed Sullivan Show, did you see an immediate
Oh, yeah.
response?
Absolutely.
Worldwide?
Absolutely. Well, I don't know about worldwide.
I mean,
but countrywide.
nationwide, yeah.
Absolutely.
And what was that like? What was it like? Did you get a call? Were you nervous when you went in? Were you ready for it? Was Ed nice to you? What was?
Well, that's a lot of questions there. Basically, what happens is, you know, you have a manager and an agent, and they set that up for us. Mm-hmm. Sid was very involved in the kind of like publicity part of the music business, which was newspapers at that time. I mean, seriously, that's where you got your when they put you in the columns, you know, like Walter Winchell in the old days, et cetera, you know, like Bob Lefsetz is now. Only it wasn't a blog, it was a newspaper. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he told us, you know, we're going on the show. Naturally, we're very excited. Well, here's the Ed Sullivan Show. Here's what happens, okay? You go in on a Monday morning about 6 a.m., okay? You rehearse every day, 6 a.m. Saturday, you do a full show in front of an audience, not televised. Sunday's the show. So they work you. See, but the thing is that Ed Sullivan was given a fee. Let's say, for example, $200,000. He paid us like we were doing a concert. All the acts on here, we were paid like, before that they really chopped us down, and we only had our union payment. We used to make a good salary, a good pay to do that show, and that was it. So now, as we did the show, now you also asked the question, how did he treat us? He didn't like us. He couldn't figure out this generation. He's looking at us like, the hell's wrong with you guys? You know what I'm saying? I mean, he needed you to get ratings, but he didn't get it. And it was very, very, very difficult because of the fact that, look, you as a rock and roll group, you're used to playing at least 2 hours, straight, pedal to the metal all the way. You do like 3 minutes, but you rehearse 6 days for it. So it's like, nothing, So when we go back to the apartment, my roommate was Eddie. He's direct the friggin' place. We had all this energy, built up. You do 3 minutes. Not even, 1.5 at the top, 1.5 if you're lucky at the end, and it's over. It was a lot of energy for 2.5, 3 minutes. So it was amazing. It was an experience. It was fun.
I mean, you could break a record on there just playing.
Absolutely. No, that's where it happens, man, because it happened in those days. I mean, Stones did it, Elvis did it, everybody did it, that could.
When did you guys really, what was the year that you guys really broke? Was it 66, 7?
No, it was even before that. It was like, with Good Lovin'. I think it was 65.
65, yeah.
Boom, that thing was #1. And we were really not ready for that. That was like, instant karma, like bam,
Yeah.
And it was really phenomenal, But I remember basically when we did the West Coast for the first time. We did the Whiskey Go-Go.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you solidified the charts. If you got the East and the West playing your record, it hit.
How did so 65, and when I think of the Rascals, I think of you guys kind of summer love garb.
Hey,
and
man, you got that right, yeah.
Was that fun? I mean, did you see what was happening as things were kind of evolving?
Sure.
From the early mid-60s?
Well, there's two really answers to that. First is musically, absolutely. Because, we were always tuned into each other, you know what I mean? Matter of fact, our whole generation, I like to say, was tuned into each other. That's what I do as part of my shows. I do this thing, I say, like, we didn't have any iPhones, we didn't have any internet, we had music.
Yeah.
And we were all tied together by that music. And a lot of us, I should speak for myself, were tuned in to the news and the politics and especially the civil rights on my part. And we really wanted to change what we thought was our parents' world, with all due respect to them. Well, let's stop this. Let's make a new beginning. Very, very, very rebellious generation.
Well, I mean, also, I think a lot of people look back and maybe even have a more liberal view of Vietnam than they did at the time.
Now,
yeah. I mean, at the time, you believed everything that you were told, and except there was a group of people who didn't, who were right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
no, I mean, and that's another thing I do on my shows. I thank those guys for their service to Vietnam.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, Felix, again, thank you so much for doing
pleasure,
this.
man.
I've been a fan for forever, and
enjoyed it.
You're a great guy.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next week on Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage.